Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Paul Brady.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, good, you can hear me. Let's see. I want to start by showing a picture that you might have seen on the internet, which is this amazing place. It's a mountaintop in New Zealand, and let's see. I might look at my notes here. Yeah, you see this like sort of beautifully isolated, amazing place where you can take this amazing photo. Gorgeous peaks. Truly, you're the only person out there, right? You're actually behind. In line with the rest of these people. Actually, we need a vacation photographer. It's what we need for a place like this. So, this is what it actually looks like. The people are lined up. They're looking to get this amazing shot. A lot of people have actually been to this place, Roy's Peak, in New Zealand. It has 829 reviews on TripAdvisor. It has a full-on 5-star rating. The hashtag Roy's Peak has been dropped 57,000 times on Instagram. The photo hit Reddit, and it was upvoted, people interacting with it, 78,000 times. That's how popular this place is. It's also prompted the question, is it the most Instagram hike in New Zealand? And also, is it overrated? This headline came from a blog post written a couple years ago, and the author of the post said, I don't know if this hike was ever really a secret. I mean, it's quite obvious. Trail is very clearly marked. In the past couple of years, it seems to have become a sensation. It's a hashtag NZ must do. Everyone seems to have that shot at the lookout spot, gazing out in the distance over the lake. Yep, she said, me included. So she talks a bit about the hike. How do you do it? How do you navigate it? It's seasonal. It's actually a harder hike than it looks like in some of these photos. She talks about it's not even really the best hike on the South Island of New Zealand. But is it overrated? Who cares, she says. Of course it isn't overrated. There's loads of other people doing the hike. And this is the paradox that we're in as an industry, that everybody wants to see the same thing. And there's not much stopping them. This is really, when we talk about over-tourism, the prime example. It's too much of a good thing, right? I'd like to ask, how many of us have heard this term, over-tourism, have looked it up on Wikipedia like I did to figure out what it means? No, I'm kidding. Some of us, right? Some of us have heard about it. It's really, I think, this sense of a place that's been overrun, right? And it's impacting life, not just of the tourists and the visitors and the visitor experience. Venice, that have benefited from this increase in visitor numbers, but have also seen, some negative impacts. Going forward, I think at Skift, it's really for us about transforming this over-tourism that's kind of taken over the travel industry and thinking about it in terms of under-tourism, this new way of thinking about the travel industry. It's, I think, an opportunity for destinations around the world to really embrace what makes them unique and tell new stories about the places, about the special things that they have to offer, right? So people are going to continue, as they always have, going to places that offer incredible experiences and differentiated cultures, differentiated people, differentiated food, right? But it's up to those destinations to highlight what it is that really, truly makes them special. So I want to give a couple quick examples of how destination marketers are embracing this trend towards under-tourism. So the first one comes actually from Europe, but involves a couple from New Zealand who might have been fleeing that lineup at Roy's Peak. So this couple went to Paris, and they were touring around the Louvre. They couldn't even see the Mona Lisa because the crowds were too thick. And they complained about it on Instagram, where we all complain and post our vacation photos, right? And they said, it's too crowded, we didn't have a good time. And so people in Oslo, Norway saw that, and they said, hey, we can help you out. Come somewhere new, see our destination, and we promise no crowds. They even turned it into this video.
We went to the Louvre. We obviously wanted to go and see the Mona Lisa. And when we got there, we found that people were the biggest barrier to actually seeing the painting.
Hi, this is Oslo. We saw your distress call on Instagram, and we actually want to rescue you guys and fly you over to Oslo.
Oh, really? We're at the takeoff into the runway, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, we should receive
If someone contacts you through Instagram saying come to the city, then just go for it. Probably going to be a good time.
Probably going to be a good time. Spoiler alert, they had a good time, right? So I think we're starting to see more and more of this, right? Tour operators are now developing these itineraries to less visited countries, less visited parts of places that are otherwise popular. Intrepid Travel, big tour operators, put together something called the Not List for 2019 that takes people to the unexplored corners of spots like Borneo, of Cambodia. Instead of Angkor Wat, you can go here. The idea to take people off the sort of beaten path. California, not hurting for tourism, but they're another place that's embraced this idea of under-tourism and pushing people out into seeing things besides that top 10 list, right? I'm sure some people here have heard of the Coachella Festival, right? The Coachella, obviously, is a huge place that is probably best known for stuff like this, but also offers a lot of this, right? A lot of nature. And what California is doing is capitalizing on that name recognition of Coachella to really get people out of where they usually go and exploring the bigger, broader region in search of nature and amazing sort of pictures and experiences like this. So in 2017, Coachella region had almost 14 million visitors who spent over $5 billion based basically around the currency of that name, but also effectively getting people not just to the festival, but to the broader destination. So as we think about this under-tourism shift, I want to also think about navigating the line between boosting tourism, boosting arrivals, and developing tourism responsibly, which is, I think, one of the key questions in the next 5 years in travel. So the UNWTO, which we've heard a lot about today, has released some new numbers about the state of our industry. So this is the kind of stats portion of the presentation. But obviously we've known that we're forecasting 1.4 billion travelers this year. That's 2 years ahead of the UNWTO's long-term forecast. Export earnings generated by tourism have grown to $1.7 trillion, an increase of 4%. That's obviously outpaced the global economy. If you divide actually that 1.7 trillion by 365 days a year, we're talking about $4.7 billion every day generated by tourism around the world. So there's plenty of interesting data in this report. It came out, I think, last week from UNWTO. You can find it online. It's pretty interesting, but a couple other things that really caught my eye. Most people are getting their destination by air. 4 and 5 visit destinations in their home region, so from nearby areas. More than half of all travelers are now traveling for leisure, not for business. And this is an interesting one, that the share of people worldwide who need a visa has declined from 75% needing a visa in 1980 to only 53% in 2018. So we at Skift would love to see that continue to go down and see those visa regimes and sort of paperwork barriers to travel be further sort of lifted. And then the last thing I'd mention is that travel spend grew nearly a full percentage point faster than global GDP. So a little takeaway from the Secretary General of the UNWTO. These results were driven by a favorable economic environment, of course, but also a growing middle class in emerging economies, technical advances, new business models, increased air capacity, affordable travel costs, and then there's that visa facilitation. He went on and he said that the UNWTO is committed to ensuring that continued growth is managed in a responsible and sustainable way, and that tourism is rightly seen as a key driver of social and economic development and job creation and equality. And there's one last tidbit from the story, which is that growth in Caribbean tourism in particular has grown in the first half of 2019 by 11%, which is leading the entire world. So with tourism clearly on the rise, and the future looking bright, you see that trend line continuing to move up towards $2 billion in the coming years. Destination management is and should be a top priority for everyone. And so we love at Skift these sort of smart, irreverent, differentiated takes from tourism marketers and managers, when they put out taglines like this. Nebraska, honestly, it's not for everyone. We don't, we don't need you. Yeah. So, Adweek loved it, right? Adweek, all about these sort of marketing campaigns. They snubbed the haters, right? In a world, right, where we're constantly being oversold, we're constantly being told that every destination is spectacular and it's unlike anything else, there's really, a breath of fresh Nebraskan air in a slogan like this, right? So I think what's great about this is that it really resonates with people, right? We're all being sold all the time, and this slogan not only stands out, right? It's not only just funny and cute and interesting and different, but it also helps travelers self-select, right? They're helping you decide whether or not Nebraska is right for you. They're courting these curious people and interesting people and people who are intrepid and want something different and exciting, right? The kind of people who aren't going to leave a crummy review on TripAdvisor when they go and they say, well, Nebraska wasn't like Tokyo. Nebraska wasn't like Paris. No, they're courting people who actually want to go and see what the place has to offer. So what the Nebraska Tourism Commission said about it is, in this print ad, there are enlightened truth seekers out there willing to take the time to find out what makes our beautiful state so appealing, charming, and disarming. And we welcome those enlightened truth seekers. And who wouldn't want to be that, right? And try something new, something different. So this marketing and this messaging helps filter out people who might not be a right fit for the destination, and also tells you something about the destination itself. So you're boosting guest satisfaction, you're showing people that you're more than what they might think you are, and you're getting the right travelers in, which is a win-win-win. So when we're thinking about managing tourism growth, there are other tactics we can take away, I think, from destinations, particularly in Europe, where they're confronting this over-tourism challenge, I think, more than just about anywhere. So my colleague Rosie Spinks, who writes a lot about travel and travel marketing, says that a lot of tourism boards in Europe are taking proactive, preemptive action to make sure that over-tourism doesn't creep up, right? Places still aiming to build thriving tourism economies, but also learning from the experiences of these places like Venice and Barcelona, right? It can't be this nice problem to have. You can't see arrivals go up in perpetuity, because eventually you hit this problem that it's not really a great place to live or to visit anymore. So take a look at this chart that shows since 2005, the sort of visitor arrivals in Europe. You've gone from 1.7 billion to 3.1 billion. This doesn't include last year, so 05 to 17, increase of 92%. And if you drill down, you'll see that this is a little bit unevenly distributed, right? So country by country, surge in room nights, you'll see some really interesting destinations on here that are really going to start grappling with this over-tourism challenge in the coming years. Lithuania, Croatia, a place like Dubrovnik that was made famous on Game of Thrones, right, is dealing with a huge crush of people. Latvia, UK, I think is kind of interesting on this list, but you think about Bulgaria, Hungary, these are places that are not necessarily on the top, I think, of everybody's, go list. Like, who's dying to go to Bulgaria tomorrow? Right, but not anything against them, but Slovenia, another place that's seen 5.9 million visitors last year, the 5th straight year of record-breaking arrivals for that country. And most of them were foreign arrivals, which grew by 11% just last year. So at Skift, we talked to a representative from the National Tourism Board who said that their approach is to create these macro destinations, right, to get people away from, again, that top 10 list or the top 5 list. They've done a Mediterranean coast destination that's kind of working together to market that region. The Slovenian Alps, they're not really highlighting anymore places like this, like Lake Bled, because quite frankly, when you look like that, you don't need the help, right? So Slovenia has implemented this program as well on a national level that rewards engagement with local communities. Destinations survey their local communities about the impact of tourism, about what they need to do to better manage tourism, and then share those results back to the national level so that they're distributed throughout the country and everybody can learn from one another. In return, they get better promotion from the National Tourism Board. So it's not really pay to play, it's pay if you play along with the strategy. The places that buy into the national strategy of distributing visitors throughout, sharing the benefits of tourism and lessening the negative impacts of it, are the ones that end up benefiting. Another lesson from Europe, from Vilnius, Lithuania, another place that's seeing huge growth, but is a little bit, I think, off the radar. The first half of 2019, they saw a 12.5% growth in arrivals compared to just last year. And they're, they've got a nice kind of view of a beautiful European city. Overnight stays are up 4 times, 2009, and it's another place impacted by pop culture. You know, the HBO series Chernobyl was filmed largely in Lithuania, and people are now going to see Vilnius because of that incentive. They're seeing it on TV, they want to see it up close. So we spoke with the project manager for Go Vilnius, the Economic Development and Tourism Promotion Board, and they're, at the moment, we're happy about the growth, she said. But we're also aware of sustainability and the problems that unsustainable growth could cause. So we're trying to steer growth in a more sustainable way. And they're doing it with, I think, 2 key factors. So number one is they're encouraging locals to get involved. Locals are working as tour guides, locals are interfacing with tourists one-on-one, and they're not only just showing people their destination, their favorite spots in the cities, but they're also listening, right? Saying, what do visitors want, and how can we better manage the influx of visitors that we're getting and distribute them throughout the city? This Meet a Local campaign is really a way to get feedback and then run it up the chain within the country itself. They're also doing year-round promotions. So Vilnius is in Northern Europe. It's not always great weather, but just because it looks like this outside doesn't mean you can't head over the city. So it's a way that they're trying to distribute visitor arrivals throughout the year and better sell the destination as a true 4-season place to visit. Now, when it comes to snowy places that you might not want to visit year-round, I think Iceland is number one, and it's kind of been the poster child for over-tourism, as well as the under-tourism movement that we're tracking at Skift over the last few years. You know, Iceland is obviously a stunning, beautiful, visually rich place, and that's led to a lot of the benefit that they've seen. You know, people see photos like this and they want to live them themselves. Let's see. The tourism growth there has helped the country recover after a brutal financial crisis, and it's also empowered a new breed of entrepreneurs. And so as tourism revenue now accounts for 42% of Iceland's economy, which is up in just since 2013 from 27%, it's really about empowering people to develop something new in Iceland. Here's a look at the exported goods and services. You can see pretty much everything else on a slowed down slope, and revenues from foreign travelers arriving on a big upswing. That's leading to the fear of a travel bubble, right? As Reykjavik, the capital, is transformed into a modern international city and gets a lion's share of all the visitors, it's where the international airport is, other parts of Iceland are starting to be left behind, or feeling like they may soon be left behind. As arrivals are still solid, you know, a lot of the growth has slowed. The air carrier WOW Air recently closed, and that was a big chunk of the seats into the destination. And you see, as international visitors from 2011 up to 2018, they start to plateau, right? So what are we going to do now that growth maybe has stalled? We don't have that same airlift. How can we better interact with the visitors that we are getting? This is the questions that they're facing. There's a lot of opportunity or a lot of competition in the market now. There are Airbnbs. There are plenty of tour options. There are, you know, tour operators that are sort of same across the island. There's downward pressure on prices that the visitors are paying, but there's upward pressure, you know, in terms of the wages of people working in the travel industry. As tourism companies are consolidating to weather this uncertainty, they're trying to figure out new ways to invest in tourism and new products that they can deliver, right? The difference is now the attractions are no longer being built just for the visitor, they're being built for the locals as well. So one really cool example is this Perlan complex here in the foreground. So it's overlooking the city of Reykjavik. It's a museum, it's a restaurant, it's a cultural facility, and it also obviously offers really stupendous views of the city. It's a dome built over these water tanks. Used to have one of those old school rotating restaurants up on the top, but now it attracts visitors during the week, Icelanders during the weekend, gives people a space to interact, locals meet visitors, visitors meet locals, and everybody has a great time. There are other similar attractions opening up across the island, trying to get people out of Reykjavik, spas, restaurants, attractions, hikes, that blend Icelandic culture and this sort of modern convenience that travelers are looking for. And entrepreneurs are building these from the ground up. They're not built to be scale plays. They're not built to deliver coach tours. They're built to provide one-on-one interaction. And that sort of development is really going to be sustainable whether or not arrivals go up or down. There's still going to be great income, especially for targeting these travelers that we see more and more of these days at Skift that are chasing niche passions. We heard a little bit about that earlier this morning, that people are coming not to see your destination, they're not coming to have a good time, they're coming, right, to chase a particular type of bird, or to fly their drone, or to go on a yoga retreat, or to chase whatever it is that they're really super passionate about in their personal life in their new destination. And Icelandic entrepreneurs are really keying in on that. So, these are a lot of the destination lessons, but I want to talk about one other sort of, quote unquote destination that actually offers a lot of opportunity and interesting room for innovation for the travel industry, and that's Google Maps, which is fast becoming one of the most powerful destinations for travel research and travel information around the world. Much more influential, I would dare to say, than things like old school consumer magazines or even social media. Because this is what people open first, not only when they're planning a trip, but once they're on the ground in that destination. That's where they're interacting with the place while they're in it. Google, the flip side of this, is pouring a ton of resources into this tool, probably on the order of billions of dollars. They don't break it out, but according to a Morgan Stanley analysis, Google Maps has added new augmented reality features and promoted pins that are likely to increase the app's user utility and monetization potential. So that's the analyst's note. What the heck does that mean? It means that Google's spending big money to make this thing more useful and more sticky for the people that already use it every day. Through Google Maps, you can already search and book hotels, find tours and attractions, events, walking directions, driving directions, train delay notifications, book an Uber, make a restaurant reservation, and even get companies to deliver your lunch. And that's just today. Hotels have started trialing customer service through Google Maps. People would open the map, open their hotel, and then interact with their hotel through a chat function built into Google Maps. The future potential is really, really huge, says Google's CEO. This is that local mobile searches are growing faster than general mobile searches and have increased by almost 50% in the last year alone, which is why Google's pouring all this money into it. They're continuing to invest, the CEO said, in building a local experience that benefits merchants, users, and advertisers. So if your business isn't there and you don't have a Google Maps strategy, you're missing out on some opportunities. Now the thing is, whether it's Google Maps, it's another digital technology, it's some other disruptor that we haven't even seen yet, it's going to change the travel industry. We remain at Skift bullish on the future potential of this industry. Thinking back to that data, keep in mind, we've got 1.4 billion people traveling and many more in the years to come. It's going to be 2 billion people soon enough chasing experiences around the world. And that's really what they're after. There's another slide that I want to highlight from this same UNTO data dump. If you look here on this side, they've got these consumer travel trends, which I think are really, really interesting. And they explain the motivations of tomorrow's traveler. And it might be a little fuzzy there, but it's all about what people are traveling for: to change, to become a better person through education or seeing something new. People, the UN forecasts, will be traveling to show, to demonstrate to their friends and their family the wonders of the world. They want to pursue wellness or special access to experiences you simply can't have at home. People want to spend time with their family in new places to create better memories and longer lasting memories that they can't have mediated by screens. And lastly, the UNWTO says people want to witness climate change. They want to see the impacts that climate change is having on the world and better understand what's going on in the planet around them. So that's what tomorrow's consumer wants and what we should be developing tourism products to deliver on. You know, if you see the other side of this slide, 100% of people says that sustainability is an objective of theirs, but only 64% say they've linked that sustainability focus to their overall competitiveness. So while travelers are telling us they care about it, there's still a little bit of gap for opportunity there as well. So this is really, you know, the big picture. I think this is really what's showing us what our opportunity is as a travel industry in developing new products and coming up with new ways of talking to travelers. So a couple years back at Skift, we coined this term, perm anxiety. And our CEO defined it as a near constant state of anxiety that exists around the world. Travelers endure a barrage of worries about terrorism, security, neo-isolationism, racial tension, Trumpism, technology, widening economic gap, culture wars, climate change, and other geopolitical issues. Now, we haven't fixed all those problems. I'm sorry to say. And they demand our attention. But the good news is that despite all of those things, despite all of those ongoing challenges, and despite this age of permanent anxiety we're in, people are continuing to travel. People are continuing to spend money on new experiences and forming new memories with their family, meeting new people, experiencing new cultures around the world. So we think that there's a bigger role to play for travel, right? As we think about these new products and visitor dispersal and all these other things, right? It's not just about getting people on planes, taking them somewhere, sticking them in hotels, maybe serving them a fruit punch or something. It's about much more than that. It's about giving people, visitors and locals alike, repeaters and first-timers, an amazing experience and connecting cultures across, borders. The uncertainty of our time is not going to go away. But what you can control is the experience and the insight and the memory that you give to your visitors. So my guess, this being Aruba, there's going to be a lot of happiness in whatever it is that ends up being. So thank you all so much for the chance to be here.